Have you ever felt that strange presence by your side as night falls and silence takes over? On the Day of the Dead, that feeling comes to life and spine-chilling stories emerge on every corner. In this video, we're going to explore paranormal experiences that happen precisely at this time of year. Real accounts that connect the living and the dead, and that will make you question everything you know about the other side. Here, you'll discover why so many people claim to see and feel unexplainable things during this celebration, and how these experiences can bring profound reflections about life, destiny, and even about those who have already passed. Want to understand what these stories reveal about existence itself, or find out how to interpret those strange signs you might have noticed before? Get ready for tales that stir emotions and tap into the unknown. Are you prepared to face these mysteries head-on? If you've ever had an unexplainable experience or know someone who has, this video will help you understand that, in this world, nothing is exactly what it seems. Day of the Dead, a celebration that stirs the heart and the mind. Imagine a time when nostalgia and spirituality dance together, a celebration that is both familiar and profoundly mysterious. It's as if there's an invisible bridge between the present and the past, where ancestral spirits seem to echo through memories. This is the Day of the Dead, a tradition that goes beyond mere homage. It's a reunion. Have you ever stopped to think about the power of connecting with ancient stories, often forgotten? During this time, it's not just about remembering, but reliving, and that involves confronting our beliefs about life and death. Throughout this celebration, paranormal stories arise that intrigue even the most skeptical. Tales of presences and unexpected encounters, events that, no matter how hard we try to explain, defy common logic. It's as if the Day of the Dead not only honors those who have passed, but also allows them to visit their loved ones. And these aren't just legends or folklore, they're experiences that make even the most skeptical ask, could there be something beyond what we see? Have you ever heard of someone sensing a loved one's presence? Perhaps through a familiar scent or an object that seems to have moved on its own? Interestingly, during this night of celebration, there is no fear. On the contrary, many feel comforted by the presence of these ancestral spirits. Imagine yourself alongside family members, setting up an altar with the favorite foods of those who have passed. It's a simple act, but one loaded with meaning. It's as if each candle and each marigold flower is an invitation for these spirits to spend a moment among the living. There's nothing more human than this, keeping memories alive, welcoming them, and remembering that, in some way, we are not so alone. But not all encounters are peaceful. Many of these stories delve into the darker side, and the night of terror becomes a stage for unexplainable events. Some say that by opening this door, we're also allowing other, darker entities to approach. Have you ever heard of that sudden shiver like someone is watching you? It's common for people to report feeling this chill down their spine or even hearing inexplicable whispers during the Day of the Dead. These moments awaken a mixture of curiosity and caution. After all, not all visitors on this night are the ones we hoped for. And what about the stories of family members who have passed on, leaving such clear signs that they're hard to ignore? A flickering light, a door that closes on its own, things that disappear and reappear in unexpected places. Many believe that spirits, when they realize they're being honored, find ways to acknowledge this remembrance. One example is of a woman who, visiting her father's grave, saw something shining in a corner of the cemetery. It was the watch he used to wear, which she had lost months before. Coincidence? Who knows? And then you think, maybe these paranormal stories aren't so distant after all. What if, in truth, they were reminders that our memories are never truly alone? This feeling of nostalgia mixed with an invisible presence is powerful. It's a reminder that our connection with those we love never fades, even if we're in different worlds. These ancestral spirits, in some way, are still around us, perhaps just waiting for a chance to remind us of their stories and what they taught us. More profoundly, the Day of the Dead leads us to reflect on how we treat our own legacies. After all, we all have one. Who hasn't found themselves wondering how they'll be remembered? It's almost impossible not to think about it as we look at the altars, at lives that have passed and left an indelible mark. Imagine that one day, you too might be the spirit someone honors. This tradition calls us to live in a way that's more connected, both with the living and those who have departed, as if our actions will echo beyond time. Over time, this celebration has expanded, taken on new forms, and brought to light stories that touch the soul. For many, the Day of the Dead is not just a tradition, but a moment of healing, a chance to rediscover roots and reconnect with a time and place that would otherwise be lost forever. So, the next time you hear about this celebration, remember, it's not just about the past, but about how the past still lives within us, shaping the present. Sometimes the strangest stories start innocently. Clara, a curious young girl, met a mysterious child while strolling through the cemetery during the Day of the Dead. This place, where ancestral spirits seem to roam every corner, already has an aura of mystery. But that night, the encounter was particularly unusual. The other child seemed out of place, silent, with a fixed gaze and an eerily calm presence. For a moment, Clara blinked, and, as if by magic, the child disappeared into the shadows of the gravestones. Who hasn't heard stories like this, which start out mundane and end up involving the unexplainable? After this encounter, the night of terror truly began for Clara. Returning home, something was different. Objects moved on their own. A door that used to creak now closed with an unsettling noise, almost like a whisper. The presence of that mysterious child seemed to have followed Clara to her room, where the air felt heavier. Imagine yourself lying in bed, hearing light footsteps in the hallway, unable to move, just sensing the invisible presence around you. These experiences make anyone question what they really encounter on the Day of the Dead. As days went by, the strange events continued. Clara told her parents, but they just laughed, thinking it was all in her imagination. Who hasn't heard someone say, "It's just in your head"? But for Clara, it was real, almost tangible. The spirit seemed to be in her house, moving small objects, making noises in the silence of the night. Clara even tried to ignore it, but some signs were too strong to dismiss, like the sound of a soft laugh coming from one of the empty rooms. One night, Clara remembered the child she had encountered and, in a moment of courage, tried to communicate with the spirit. In a low voice, she asked, "Are you there?" The answer came with a gentle breeze that made the curtains sway and a chill ran down her spine. This was the kind of experience that you never forget, the confirmation that something exists beyond what we can see. And the question that arises is, who was this child? And why was he there? Many times these ancestral spirits seem to have something to say, but it's up to us to listen. Clara decided to seek answers and began to visit the cemetery. With each visit, something new happened. One day, she found a small porcelain doll, similar to one she had seen at home. It was as if the spirit wanted to tell her a story, but in a fragmented, enigmatic way. Perhaps, like in other paranormal stories, the child had left things unfinished, and Clara was there to help solve this puzzle. The doll was the first of many objects that mysteriously appeared during her visits. From there, Clara began to understand that the Day of the Dead was much more than a celebration. It was a portal, a connection between worlds. That mysterious child seemed to want something, as if he were seeking peace. For Clara, it was impossible to ignore the idea that certain spirits stay nearby, still bound by invisible ties. And this brought a new understanding of what it really means to honor the dead. It's an act of love, but also of healing, both for those who have passed and for those who remain. With each experience, Clara felt that she was becoming stronger, more connected with the spiritual side. And this strength wasn't something she could easily explain. It was as if something greater was guiding her, protecting her, allowing her to live these experiences without fear. The presence of the spirit now felt more friendly, almost like a silent guardian. This transformation made Clara realize that often, the fear of the unknown only hides a connection that we haven't yet understood. But then came the question, how long would this presence stay by her side? Like so many Day of the Dead stories, this experience brought Clara a world of questions, but no definitive answers. And that's how the mystery expands, drawing us in, inviting us to look beyond the veil and ask, what else is waiting to be discovered? Stories of family curses always spark our curiosity, but they also send a chill down our spines. Imagine a beloved uncle who, without explanation, begins to slowly waste away. His skin loses its color, his gaze fades, and even the doctors can't understand the cause. For many, it's just a mysterious illness. But for his family, steeped in Day of the Dead beliefs, it's clear that something else is at play. In this context, the suspicion of witchcraft arises almost as a certainty, a curse cast by someone with dark intentions. This kind of story resonates deeply with the power of ancestral spirits and their influence beyond our understanding. As the uncle battled this invisible force, the family sought help in ancient rituals, in prayers passed down through generations. Clara's grandmother, for instance, kept a locket with herbs and sacred objects on the house altar as a form of protection. This practice, passed down from generation to generation, served as a shield against negative energies. This legacy of protection is one of the pillars of many Day of the Dead stories, where elements like incense and salt are used to cleanse the house and protect the family. What some see as superstition, others view as an act of faith, a barrier against evil. One day, during one of these prayer sessions, a strange silence fell over the house. The lights flickered, and the sensation of something dark watching everyone left a heavy atmosphere. It was as if the spirit behind the curse was there, observing, waiting for the next move. Imagine experiencing this. Every detail, every shadow feels more alive, and each sound takes on a threatening tone. In that moment, the family realized they were in a real spiritual battle, fighting not only for the uncle's life, but for the peace of the home itself. The Day of the Dead arrived, and with it the hope that the ancestral spirits might intervene. It's said that the dead have a deep connection to the world of the living, especially on this night. The family gathered around the altar, and amidst the candles and offerings, they made a request for the protective spirit of Clara's great-grandmother to come to the uncle's aid. In many paranormal stories, it's common for deceased relatives to appear to guide and protect, like invisible warriors. For some, this might seem strange, but faith in one's ancestors is what gives strength in moments of despair. That night, an intriguing phenomenon occurred. The uncle, bedridden for weeks, began to murmur old names of family members who had already passed. It was as if the spirits were there, beside him, whispering in his ear, transmitting the strength to fight. This kind of experience is difficult to explain, but very common in stories of curses and witchcraft. For those who believe, it's a sign that spiritual support is always available. You just need to know how to ask and be open to receive it. As the days passed, the uncle began to recover. Slowly, the family felt the negative presence had weakened. Perhaps, as many believe, the ancestral spirits had intervened, bringing healing energy with them. But the impact of this experience remained etched in the family's memory. The realization that forces beyond our understanding are always present, ready to manifest for both good and ill. The Day of the Dead brought not only the remembrance of the dead, but also their strength. This episode was a reminder of the importance of respecting the invisible, of caring for the energies we allow into our lives. For the family, the Day of the Dead became more than just a celebration. It turned into a sacred moment to protect and strengthen spiritual bonds. Clara, especially, came to understand that the spiritual world is not distant. It is tangible, and those who came before continue to watch over the living. This instilled a sense of responsibility over her actions, a feeling that everything we do reverberates in this mystical space. But what about the marks left behind? This kind of experience, while frightening, also teaches. In the end, each family member came away carrying a bit of that ancestral wisdom as an invisible shield, knowing that in moments of fragility they had a place to draw strength. And so, the door to the next Day of the Dead mystery opens, awaiting those ready to hear what the beyond has to say. The Day of the Dead is a special time for those who have lost loved ones, like Santiago's mother, who awaits this day eagerly each year. She lost her son young, and his absence left a deep void. But on the Day of the Dead, she believes Santiago's spirit visits her, bringing a comfort that nothing else can give. Imagine the emotion of feeling the presence of someone so loved, realizing that the bond between mother and child transcends death. In those moments, ancestral spirits seem to bring a silent message. They are still around, watching over us. During this celebration, she sets up an altar with everything Santiago loved: his favorite foods, photos, and personal items. This act, which for many is tradition, for her is a way to keep her son's memory alive. Every detail, from the flowers to the candles, carries a different energy, almost as if Santiago's own spirit were helping to assemble the altar. For her, this is a deeply connected experience, as if, in some way, he could feel all the love that still surrounds him. That's the power of paranormal stories, showing that love truly transcends any barrier. However, with the night of terror come some frightening moments, too. One night, she swore she heard Santiago's laugh echoing down the hall. It was a laugh she knew well, but hadn't heard in years. Imagine yourself in her place, hearing something so familiar yet impossible to experience physically. These experiences stir deep beliefs, and for many, they are proof that emotional bonds really do persist. The Day of the Dead becomes, then, a moment where the impossible becomes possible, where love manifests through the supernatural. Throughout the night, other signs appeared. Santiago's mother began to notice small objects out of place, things he used to use that, mysteriously, appeared in unlikely places. A pair of sneakers by the door, a soccer ball next to the bed. These objects, charged with her son's energy, seemed to be moved by an invisible force. She felt he was trying to communicate that his presence was real, and there was something he wanted to say. For many, this would be terrifying, but for her, it was a sign that Santiago was still with her. Over time, this mother began to see the Day of the Dead not only as a day of remembrance, but as a chance for reunion. She believes that by lighting the candles, she's illuminating the way for Santiago to find his home and rest for a few hours by her side. These aren't just candles. They're beacons guiding ancestral spirits, enabling these reunions to happen. And for those who live this experience, there's immense comfort in knowing that, even separated by an invisible barrier, they remain connected. This connection, however, brings mixed emotions. At certain moments, the love is so intense that the pain of loss resurfaces, and she wonders if Santiago's spirit is at peace. This makes her reflect on the role of the Day of the Dead itself. It's a celebration for the living, but also so the dead can feel honored, loved, and at peace. Every gesture, every prayer, is a message sent to the beyond, hoping these spirits feel the love that still surrounds them. For her, that's the true meaning of the Day of the Dead. Each year, new paranormal stories unfold in her home. Some relatives report feeling Santiago's presence, while others say they dreamed of him precisely on the Day of the Dead. It's as if his spirit visited each loved one, bringing a reminder, a sign that he still cares. For them, it has become a tradition, almost like a sacred ritual, where everyone shares their experiences and strengthens their bonds. After all, love and longing manifest in many ways, and these stories are proof of that. But will these signs ever stop? This mother, even without definite answers, continues to wait for the Day of the Dead with a heart full of hope. And that's how the tradition endures, nourished by the belief that the ancestral spirits will always be present. For her, it's the most important time of the year, a moment where love transcends the physical and reaches the spiritual, leaving a door open for the next chapter of this eternal bond. Guanajuato is a land full of stories and mysteries, and it's no coincidence that many say this place holds secrets few dare to uncover. The city, known for its Day of the Dead traditions, also carries a weight of legends and supernatural encounters. Here, ancestral spirits seem to wander freely through the old alleys, as if they were a living part of the city. For the residents, these presences are almost family, a legacy passed down from generation to generation. After all, how could you not believe what your grandparents told you with such conviction? In the whispers about souls still roaming the cobbled streets? The families of Guanajuato have their own stories of inexplicable encounters. Imagine a young man out for an evening walk who, at a corner, sees the figure of someone who disappeared years ago. These encounters are described with surprising clarity, as if the spirits choose to reveal themselves to remind us that, on the Day of the Dead, the world of the living and the dead intertwine. These aren't just scary stories, but accounts that show a deep respect for those who came before, as if these apparitions were a way to reaffirm the ancestral presence in every detail of the city. For the older residents, these stories hold invaluable meaning. Many grew up hearing tales of apparitions, of voices echoing through old houses, especially during the Night of Terror. And it's not just any night. There's something about the air in Guanajuato that makes this experience even more intense. It's as if the city itself conspires to keep these legends alive, wrapping every corner in an aura of mystery and respect. Some even believe that the ancestral spirits protect Guanajuato, ensuring that traditions and values are never lost, despite the passage of time. Interestingly, some houses in Guanajuato have altars dedicated exclusively to the spirits of the city itself. For the locals, honoring these spirits is a form of protection, almost like a silent pact of mutual respect. During the Day of the Dead, these altars fill with flowers, candles, and small objects representing local legends. Who hasn't heard of the ghostly figure that walks along the riverbank, or the spirit of the woman who appears in dark alleys as a grim reminder of bygone times? These stories, while frightening, also bring a sense of belonging, as if these spirits are part of home. In one of the oldest houses in the city lives a lady who claims to speak with her mother's spirit every night. For her, this isn't unusual. It's a family tradition, and who would dare question it? This kind of legacy is passed down with pride, like a well-kept secret known only to the locals. She talks about how she feels her mother's presence beside her, especially on the Day of the Dead, when boundaries seem to dissolve. This is the true ghostly legacy of Guanajuato, a city where the living cohabit with the dead as naturally as any other relationship. The children of Guanajuato also grow up hearing these stories, and for them, the Day of the Dead is more than just a festival. It's an opportunity to feel this ancestral presence. They know that by lighting a candle, they're inviting ancient spirits who protect and guide them. For them, the ancestral spirits aren't frightening entities, but guardians who teach them to respect the city's history and roots. It's as if, from an early age, they're taught to value this spiritual connection, creating a bond that will accompany them throughout their lives. The interesting thing is that this coexistence with the supernatural doesn't disrupt the residents' peace. On the contrary, it brings a sense of completeness, that there is something greater connecting each generation. It's this harmony between the real and the spiritual that makes the Day of the Dead in Guanajuato such a unique event. The city, wrapped in its paranormal stories, becomes a stage where the living and the dead meet, creating an invisible dance of reverence and memory. And anyone who visits the city can feel this atmosphere, as if the very air is filled with the memories and energies of those who have passed. But are all these stories just legends? In Guanajuato, no one dares doubt, and anyone who visits the city understands that the stories about ancestral spirits aren't just ghost tales, but the heart and soul of a tradition that lives and breathes in every stone, every altar, every face that carries these stories. So, as the Day of the Dead comes to an end, a new generation is ready to uphold this legacy, leaving the door open for the spirits to return whenever they wish. Some people seem to be born with a special gift, a connection to the invisible that few can understand. This is the case with Anna, a young woman who, from a young age, has demonstrated psychic abilities passed down from generation to generation. During the Day of the Dead, these abilities seem to intensify, as if ancestral spirits approach her in a unique way. For many, Anna is seen as a lucky person, someone with an open channel to the spirit world. But this connection, while fascinating, also brings challenges. After all, who is prepared to deal with the unknown, especially on a night of terror? From an early age, Anna hears whispers, sees shadows, and senses presences that others ignore. At first, she thought everyone experienced these things until she realized only she had this sensitivity. Imagine the surprise and fear of a child who sees what no one else sees. To help, her grandmother, who also had the gift, taught Anna to use herbs and amulets as forms of protection. It's a common practice in some families, where psychic gifts are understood and respected. Her grandmother would say that ancestral spirits were there to protect, but like in all stories, there were also forces that demanded caution. Over time, Anna learned to identify which spirits were peaceful and which had negative intentions. During the Day of the Dead, she prepares a special protection ritual involving incense and candles. This is an example of how psychic abilities can be used for good, to maintain a healthy connection with the spirit world. It's not just a ritual, but a preparation to receive visitors from beyond without exposing herself to dangers. It's as if the very air of the night of terror alerted her to the presence of restless spirits, those who need guidance or who carry important messages. But it hasn't always been easy for Anna. On certain nights, especially as the Day of the Dead approaches, she feels a heavy, almost suffocating presence. During these times, Anna must summon all her courage to face negative entities that try to come closer. And here, once again, her grandmother's lessons come into play. She taught Anna never to be afraid, to remember that respect for ancestral spirits is the key to maintaining balance. This advice became a rule of life for Anna, who now, instead of fearing, embraces these experiences as part of her own spiritual growth. The life of someone with psychic abilities isn't just filled with scares. It comes with great responsibility. Anna feels she has a special role in her community, helping those who, during the Day of the Dead, seek a connection with their loved ones. For her, it's a privilege to be part of this process, guiding those who feel lost. She sees her gift as a bridge between the world of the living and the dead, a responsibility that requires care and respect. By sharing this wisdom, Anna inspires others to accept the unknown with serenity. Over the years, Anna realized that although she inherited psychic abilities, they're only a tool. What truly matters is the intention behind their use. She began to meditate daily, focusing on positive energies and keeping her mind and heart aligned. This is advice she gives to anyone who feels extra sensitivity. Cultivate good thoughts and keep a serene mind. These are the foundations for dealing with the unknown, especially on nights like the Day of the Dead when the veil between worlds seems thinner. With time, Anna has become a sort of spiritual counselor for many. People come to her to talk about their own supernatural experiences, to understand what they saw or felt. She teaches that fear only attracts negative energies, and that to have a peaceful relationship with the spiritual world, one must remain calm and steady. Her guidance goes beyond beliefs and legends. They are practical tips that anyone can follow, like keeping candles lit beside photos of loved ones, creating a welcoming environment for the ancestral spirits. But Anna knows there will always be mysteries she herself can't fully understand. And it's precisely this that keeps her fascinated: the unknown, the unrevealed. Each Day of the Dead brings new challenges and lessons, and Anna remains open to whatever the spiritual world has in store. She feels her role is more than just seeing. It's guiding and sharing this experience with others, keeping alive a tradition that mixes respect, love, and the eternal desire to understand what lies on the other side. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are those we never see but feel in moments of need. This is Pedro's story, a boy who always felt he was protected by an invisible presence, especially on the Day of the Dead. Since he was young, his mother would tell him that the ancestral spirits of their family would always be by his side, watching over his every step. For many, this may seem like just a comforting belief, but for Pedro, it was real. He believed that by lighting a candle, he was calling his invisible protector, the one who accompanied him silently. Pedro's first experience with this presence happened on a night of terror. He was playing in the backyard when he felt a strange chill, something that made him stop immediately. In that moment, a strong feeling of safety surrounded him, as if someone were embracing him. This was the beginning of a connection he would carry throughout his life. For Pedro, this ancestral spirit was like a guardian, someone who silently but constantly followed him. And this is the kind of presence many seek to feel during the Day of the Dead. A sense that we're not alone in this world. As he grew, Pedro began to notice that this presence would manifest in specific moments. For example, when he was in trouble or feeling scared, something unexplainable would calm him down. Imagine being in a difficult situation and suddenly feeling an unexplainable peace. That's how he felt. For him, the Day of the Dead was a special moment, a chance to thank this protection that, though invisible, was almost tangible. He would set up his altar with great care, offering flowers and food as a gesture of gratitude to the one who protected him. One of the most significant moments happened when Pedro almost had an accident while riding his bike. He lost control, and just when he thought there was nothing he could do, a force seemed to steer him away from danger. For him, there was no doubt. It was his invisible protector watching over him. This event reinforced his belief that the Day of the Dead isn't just a tribute to the dead, but a moment of connection and protection. Stories like this are common in many families, where ancestral spirits take on the role of guardians, always ready to act in critical moments. As the years went by, Pedro began to share these experiences with his friends, who initially thought he was exaggerating. But after hearing the detailed accounts, many started to consider that maybe he really did have this special protection. These weren't just stories to impress, but tales that brought an uncommon peace, a certainty that the invisible isn't necessarily frightening. Pedro started seeing the Day of the Dead as a moment of reconnection, a date when his invisible protector was closer than ever, almost like a dear friend. Entering adolescence, Pedro began to explore this connection further, reading about his family's practices and rituals. He discovered that the altar he set up was more than just an offering. It was a way to strengthen his bond with his protector. On this altar, he placed objects that represented the qualities he wanted to develop: courage, wisdom, kindness. It was as if he were asking for guidance on becoming a better person. This ritual, which he performed with care, became a sacred practice, especially on the Day of the Dead when he felt his life was directly connected to the spiritual world. Pedro came to see each Day of the Dead as a new opportunity to learn. He discovered that by honoring his ancestral spirits, he was also strengthening himself. It wasn't just a tribute, but a moment of learning, of connection with his roots, something that made him feel part of something greater. And each year, he felt his invisible protector was imparting new lessons, as if, little by little, he were unraveling the secret behind this presence. It was almost like a spiritual inheritance, something that would guide him throughout his life. And so, Pedro grew up with the certainty that he was never alone. He knew that in any moment of difficulty, he could rely on this force that always supported him. And as the Day of the Dead approached each year, he prepared his altar with the same devotion, hoping to feel once more that presence that had accompanied him all his life. This invisible protector, for him, was more than a legend. It was a reality that gave him the courage and gratitude to keep going, waiting for the next quiet encounter. Now that you know these stories of the Day of the Dead and all the intense experiences it can bring, how do you connect with your loved ones? Have you ever felt that unexplainable presence by your side, a chill that made you stop and think? Sometimes the spirit world tries to communicate subtly, and it's up to us to pay attention. And what if, this Day of the Dead, you try something different? Try setting up your own altar with objects and memories of your ancestors. Let these traditions bring new experiences to your life. You may be surprised by what you feel. But tell me, which of these stories intrigued you the most? Have you experienced anything similar? Share in the comments, and let's talk about these experiences that few dare to explore. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning about the mysterious, the unexplainable, what only reveals itself to those who are willing to look beyond. Ready to dive even deeper into this world?